Technical Slip, Collected Stories of John Wyndham, published by Modern Library, 2024. Inside the book we find, originally published in slightly different form as Jizzle by Dobson, London, in 1954. This edition contains the novella The Curse of the Burdens by John Wyndham, written under his pseudonym John B. Harris in 1927. And here is a photo of the first hardcover edition of Jizzle. Welcome to Vintage SF. I'm Richard Rempel. Here's Jizzle. This is a 1979 printing. And here is the table of contents. You can see the very first story is Jizzle. By the way, that's a story about a monkey, an evil monkey, named Jizzle, and it's been anglicized or made into the nickname Jizzle. And Technical Slip is the second story in this collection. Now let's take a look at the table of contents for Technical Slip. Here you can see that Technical Slip is the first story. The stories actually appear in order, but you can see the second last story now is Jizzle. And here is the added novella, The Curse of the Burdens. It's about 100 pages long. So before I talk about the book Technical Slip, I'd like to talk a little bit about the cover art and the cover art for all the Modern Library John Wyndham books. Here you can see the 10 John Wyndham books published by Modern Library. I have them in chronological order of publication. 3 of these books didn't actually make it into print. They're ebooks. That's Plan for Chaos, The Outward Urge, and Web. I don't know if they will become physical books in the future. Of course, they do already exist as physical books, just not a Modern Library printing. The artist for all these covers is Anders Nilsson. When I looked on his website, I found some alternate covers, and I thought I'd share those with you today. First, let's look at Plan for Chaos. This was a novel that was rejected at the time it was written, and was only published in 2010 by Penguin Books. It is a story of flying saucers and Nazis, in some ways similar to The Boys from Brazil by Ira Levin. These covers accurately portray events from the novel itself. And here is the final version. I think they made the right choice here in this version of cover art for Plan for Chaos. Next, let's take a look at the Midwich Cuckoos. Here's a couple of covers. If you're not familiar with this story, suffice it to say that we have women of a small village all become pregnant at the same time. And just like the bird cuckoo who pushes eggs out of a nest and lays in their own, these babies are not human. And here is the actual printed cover. As we go through these, you can let me know in the comments below whether you agree with their choice for cover image or if you would have chosen one of these alternates. Next up, let's look at Foul Play Suspected. This was a very early thriller novel from John Wyndham, back in the 1930s. It's almost a Hitchcockian type of story with spies, mysteries, and murder. And here's the choice for the printed version. Next, we have some cover drafts for The Trouble with Lichen. And here is the final cover. With The Outward Urge, I actually like these alternate covers perhaps better than what eventually became the cover for the ebook. Here are Stowaway to Mars alternate covers. And the final one. And last we'll take a look at Web. In this story, this island is taken over by spiders with a hive mind. And the final cover. So let me know in the comments below whether you agree with the choices for the final covers or were there some alternates that you might have used. For myself, when I look at The Outward Urge, I might have used either one of those alternate covers. But now it's time to talk about Technical Slip. Technical Slip is a collection of short stories, 15 of them, and a novella tacked onto the end. The 15 stories are speculative fiction, mostly to the fantasy side of things. Almost all of them feature some sort of a tightly close-knit community facing something that is out of the ordinary. something that could be extraordinary. Besides the novella, these stories were written after World War II, and the collection was published in 1954. This is when Wyndham started to change his style of writing. Before World War II, you might call it more pulp-based writing, focusing on action or mysteries. After World War II, he started to look a little bit more at communities, what held them together, and of course, catastrophes, which threatened to destroy them. I found this to be a curious mix of stories. It seems like there's some tropes that were common at that time that we see here about heaven or hell or unintended consequences. So, taking a look at the table of contents, let me give you a brief blurb for each story. Technical Slip is about a bureaucratic error in the afterlife. A wealthy old man is given an extra life by transporting him back to an early part of his life, but by mistake, they leave his memories intact. A peasant from Brunswick sees the Pied Piper of Hamelin's enchanted pipe reappearing in America after World War II. Of course, there's unforeseen consequences for the inhabitants of a small town. In Chinese puzzle, we have an egg that is brought to Wales, a giant egg, an egg that hatches a dragon. Esmeralda is a performing flea. How does the circus flea have an impact on the owner's love life? How Do I Do is a trifle of a story of a young woman meeting her future self. Her concern, a new wardrobe. Una is a genetically created creature who falls in love. Affair of the Heart is a story of a man who proposes to the same woman on the same day in the same restaurant every year for 30 years. But this time it becomes tragic. The cover art for both of these editions is based on the story Confidence Trick. Here, a subway car from London takes its occupants down into hell. But what makes this story a little bit different is we have a scientist in the subway car who challenges that hell could even exist. Is it only about belief? Will a rational view rescue those who are in the car? Or is belief so important to our society that it doesn't matter if it's irrational? At first, this looked to be a very simple story, but it asks some very interesting questions of our society. The Wheel takes a brief look at a community that is much like that in the Chrysalids, a story of forbidden technology. Look Natural, Please is a story of a young photographer and the type of portraits that he shoots. Perforce to Dream sees two women submitting an identical novel to a publisher. This is not plagiarism. Their novels are coming to them in their dreams. How can they, and perhaps more women, share the same dream? Reservation Deferred is another story of the afterlife. Is it only designed for males? Heaven Sent is an olfactory story about a scheming secretary of a brilliant scent inventor. More Spinned Against is a story of a spider that makes a deal with a collector's wife. And Jizzle is the story of a monkey who works in a circus sideshow. This monkey can draw portraits of anyone placed in front of her, but this talent can be used in nefarious ways. And the novella, The Curse of the Burdens. The Burdens is a family name. Many years ago, they took over a monastery and made it part of their estate. A curse was pronounced on them that their ancestors would die out. Now it seems to be happening. There is murder and subterfuge. Will the Burden family survive? Is there someone acting out this curse? The style here is very similar to Foul Play Suspected. This is a 1930s Hitchcockian type thriller. It's not a great story, but it's interesting. In a review of Technical Slip by Octavia Cade in Strange Horizons, she says, "The novella's okay, I guess. Overly convoluted. Wyndham published it under the pseudonym of John B. Harris in 1927 and subsequently suppressed it, according to David Ketterer, in A Companion to Science Fiction. Possibly because it's just not that great. In Wyndham's place, I might want it forgotten too. Searching the catalogue of the University of Liverpool Library, I can't find a copy of Curse, and they have special collections on both Wyndham and science fiction. I'd also point out that even the 19-page stapled pamphlet bibliography of Wyndham by Phil Stephenson Payne and Gordon Benson Jr., updated in 1987, doesn't mention it. Yes, I checked. I actually own that too, if you can believe it. So it appears that Modern Library went to great lengths to include this lost novella. I'm not sure if it really fits with these stories here, but it certainly made myself and probably other John Wyndham collectors more ready to purchase this volume. So with the novella, I think we see the pre-World War II John Wyndham, and then with the short stories, we see that development of the John Wyndham that we know from the 1950s. I give this collection 7.5 out of 10. My favorite stories were probably Jizzle and Confidence Trick. So, have you read Jizzle or Technical Slip? Which are your favorite stories? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep reading.